Alright, I'm back with another episode of Strength and Fitness TV. It's Brendan Chaplin. Today we're going to go through some power work and how to develop power. I'm going to go through a bit of a tutorial on the best ways of doing it and some of the theory and underpinning sort of rationale for power training. The bottom line is that we've heard the phrase speed kills and power's the key and that kind of stuff. It really is. Sport and athleticism is about producing forces fast and quickly. It's not about max effort strength. Even powerlifters whose goal it is to lift the heaviest weight off the floor, they will tell you that they train a lot of speed, they train a lot of power work in their lifts these days. So it's not about just wrenching up heavy weights off the floor. So we have to, as S&C coaches and athletes, of you guys out there that are athletes or trainers that are interested in developing power, we've got to have that as a priority. It's got to be about power. So here's a little bit of theory for you to get into it. What we've got here is the force velocity curve, alright? So essentially, at the top here, when the force is high, the velocity is very low. Very simple. And also, when the velocity is high, the forces are very low, okay? So you can't have one without the other. There's always force when there's velocity. Even if we're talking about, say, max effort sprints, there's huge amounts of forces there that are associated with that. And the same with your kind of 1 rep max deadlifts or your sort of scrummaging in rugby, where there's actually no movement at all. There's massively high forces, but the intent is that there's movement. So they work hand in hand. There's always velocity with force and vice versa. What our goal is as coaches and athletes who are training to develop force is to move this curve to the right. So we want to move all this out to the right. Okay? And what that means is we're then producing greater forces and greater velocities. Very simple. What we end up with, and a lot of people end up with, is not that. What we get is we get shifts in one part of the curve here, because we train with heavy weights all the time. Or we get shifts in this part of the curve, because we train with fast and light loads all the time. So what I'm trying to say to you is you've got to do everything. You've got to work the curve. Okay, you've got to use the modalities in all these different weight and velocity and force and velocity relationships to develop that rounded athleticism. And what we'll do if we do that is we'll end up shifting that full curve to the right as such. Alright, so let's talk about the nuts and bolts now. Let's talk about exercises that would go in here. This part of the curve here is going to be your max efforts. Your squats, your deadlifts, your heavy presses, your heavy pulls, your sort of 1 rep max type stuff here. Okay? So that's very simple. To increase force, shift that curve to the right, we're going to use heavy stuff, heavy lifting. This part of the curve here is going to be your ballistic movements. So you're training for speed, you're training sprints, you're training with light implements, medicine balls and your own body weight primarily. Okay? So that's going to be 100% speed right at this bottom end. The key for us is these two middle bits. So we've got essentially two sections here. Two sections here. One of them is going to be associated with slightly higher loads but moved at velocity, and that is known as strength speed. Very important area to work in our programs. Essentially, you're looking to move heavy things fast. Okay, so we're not in 1RM territory, but we might be just sub-maximal explosive strength, sort of 70–80% type loads. So it might be stuff like trap bar jumps, heavy cleans, heavier jump squats, that sort of thing, and heavy weighted sled pushes would fit in that territory as well. Here, we're looking at more what's known as speed strength. So it's a speed emphasis on that power stuff. So we've got, again I mentioned medicine balls, they would cross over there, so med ball throws, we've got light snatches, power snatches, that kind of stuff, weighted vest type stuff, when we're jumping or sprinting with weighted vest, that comes into the speed strength category. So an emphasis on speed. Really important to work the curve though. So we've got all these qualities emphasised within our program. Very, very important. Alright, so we're going to go into a bit of a work the curve session here. Now you don't have to program your S&C program like this. You can do it in a different way. You can have one session being in this kind of force area and one session being in the speed area. If you've got 2 per week, you can have one here, and one here. If you're training on a 3 times weekly basis, this is just an example of one session that would tick all these boxes here. Okay, all these boxes. What I've gone through is a couple of almost sort of post warm-up power exercises. So we've got 3 sets of 5 box jumps, supersetted with 3 sets of 10 kettlebell swings. Then we're moving on to some strength speed type stuff here with your hand cleans and your sled drives, and we're going to do 4 sets of 4 and 4 sets of 15. And finally we're going to finish with some force element here. So you've got your back squats, 5 sets of 3, really working on the force, and your chins 5 sets of 3. Now that's an important consideration, that we've basically got 1 here, 2 in this area, and 3 in this area. And that is an important consideration when it comes to your program. You really don't want to be looking at more than 3 major physical qualities in your programs at any one time. Any more than that and it'll all water down and go to, you know, something you don't want it to go to. So we've got plenty of rest in between these, but supersets are important as well when it comes to S&C, because we've got to save time, we've got to get our athletes in and out. You can do this without supersetting it, so you do box jumps to kettlebell swings and back in like a mini circuit, but it'll take you longer to do, and ultimately we want our athletes getting out and getting rested and on the field or court or whatever sport it is that they do. So I like to superset my exercises in sessions. And also the exercise number is quite low. You've got 6 exercises, you've got 3, 4 or 5 sets of each, and then you're out the gym. Okay? If you start putting 8, 10, 12 different exercises in, it all gets watered down and it's very difficult to get some consistent improvement there. Alright? So here we go, here's some fundamental take-home points. We want to develop rounded athletes. Yeah, we want that curve shifted to the right all the way. Okay? There might be arguments when you get to a more advanced level that certain sports or certain athletes would need more of, say, speed strength than force qualities, or pure speed versus strength speed. There might be arguments to say we'll emphasise one, but in general you want to look to work and improve that curve and shift it to the right. Here's another important point: using supersets saves time. You don't need the fatigue in there, it's not a circuit. You have the time to rest in between each set, so you'll have a couple of minutes in between, but you're still working quite intensively. And the last thing that I want to emphasise here is we need to develop rate of force development. Okay? It's not about being as strong as you can over 10 seconds, it's about being as fast and powerful as you can in actually under 0.2 seconds these days is commonly associated. So you've got to be able to produce that force in 0.2 seconds or less for it to be really effective. Okay? So rate of force development is key, and that's where your power exercises, your Olympic lifting, your speed squats, jump squats, sled pushes, etc. are vital. They help to develop explosive rate of force development. Alright, so that's a little bit of a tutorial on power training. Take it away. You can take on our Work the Curve session and let us know how you get on with it, or you can put something together yourself, but think of that rounded athleticism and working the curve. Okay, Strength and Fitness TV, out.